Good morning still, right? Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
Ganesh.
Yes.
So this is going to be slightly different because Ganesh is the LLM, and I'll be the prompt engineer to the extent that I can, and see what kind of answers we get from Ganesh.
You need a new model architecture to start with.
Yes, you're the what is it, 1.5 million token LLM. But kidding aside, Ganesh, let's start with a quick introduction, if you don't mind. Introduce yourself.
Sure. By way of background, I started my career as a developer. Through all my jobs, I've always maintained that I could code to have a comfortable living, and thanks to AI, I can still do that. But my real job has been as an entrepreneur, founder. I've built startups. I've been in large enterprise software companies. I've managed to take some hypergrowth companies to IPO. I've also had the bizarre experience explaining to a lot of my friends in Silicon Valley why I took a job at GE and went to work in industries that I have no idea about, like energy and healthcare and aviation, and saw the power of just applying low-hanging machine learning and data science to those industries. Then I ran a AI and ML company, and now I'm at Insight Partners as a managing director, partner, and investor. So I invest largely in enterprise AI, deep tech, and pretty much up and down the stack, and I look at things that are being reinvented. Insight, by way of background, is a global, multi-stage venture capital, growth equity. Some people think of it as private equity because we do everything. We do everything from Series A to taking a public company private, and the fund that I invest out of is a $20 billion fund. We're also one of the largest investors in data and AI, unlike the other people that was just mentioned. I'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll stop right there. Ganesh, so our topic, right, is about the betting on the future. Right? It's really like focusing forward, if you will, from everything we've heard about. But one thing that is clear, just listening to the sessions this morning, in terms of recording business at the speed of AI, what we're realizing is we're not recording business at the speed of AI, right? Because the pace of AI is moving very, very fast, faster than anything we have seen. Certainly, I have seen and been in this industry for over 30 years. How did we get here? How is it that it's become so big, so fast, and so transformational?
Yeah, so I think you will always hear the commentary, right? Everybody says that this is the biggest shift they've seen in their tech career. And if you remember all the other tech shifts, it took a long time to adopt them. The shift from client-server to the pseudo half-internet, to the web, to the SaaS, to the ASP, to cloud-native, to the modern data stack, all of those technology shifts took a long time for most enterprises to go adopt. And in some ways, I look at the tech world. The tech world adopts things faster. Where I live in Silicon Valley, they move faster than most other, digital native industries move faster than non-digital industries. And even they have struggled with keeping the pace of innovation with this. But the interesting thing is, while this is the biggest shift, it's also the easiest one to adopt, where it's just an API call away. Reasoning and cognition is just an API call away, right? When Amazon gave birth to cloud computing, immediately a bunch of startups could be born because we had access to massive scale computing with swiping a credit card. But again, we had gentlemen from NVIDIA as well talk about, clearly there was a moment in accelerated computing.
Yep.
But I think you could trace it back to the intersection of the moment of that NVIDIA accelerated computing arriving, and in 2017 when a group of researchers at OpenAI were building an algorithm to, LSTM model to generate reviews and understand sentiments. They found that there was an emergent neuron that could classify, Amazon reviews based on sentiments better than any state-of-the-art sentiment classifier. So this was an emergent behavior that they had not even coded for, right? And they thought, wow, we really need to accelerate this. If we can just run it on steroids, we could get to a significantly interesting point in compute. And they thought, okay, we won't be able to do it because the architecture isn't there. We'll have to wait for another year. and thanks to NVIDIA, and then there was this paper from Google on the attention is all you need, the transformer, the birth of the transformer model, and boom, within the next 3 months, they had that breakthrough. And since then, we've had this wave, and some of us who've been following this can see that coming, but still not come at the speed, right? Then we had GPT 3.5, then 4.0, now we just had the 4.0, and we have, I think there was a discussion on, there's a lot of limitations on how you scale this, but I think people are finding different ways to scale it too now. Just like large language models, we're seeing small language models. Apple released one that can run on device. We've invested in a company that can run in really, really small spaces. So, and just going back to that, that's one of the things like where in the model layer, there is every other week there's a breakthrough, and there's probably 65 or 70 plus large language models. It doesn't feel like a winner take all. It's still in the early days. I think for most narrow applications, which is what we tend to focus on versus theoretically talk about AGI. I think there are companies that are pursuing AGI. I think that's important to get to the reasoning, because in the path to AGI, we will come up with new reasoning architectures, new cognitive representations, new knowledge representations. But I think there is going to be a lot of applications in simple, narrow AI areas, and I think that's really what is super exciting.
Good. So let's go back to that point, right, Ganesh? So we start with how we got here, and now here we are, and earlier in the day and even yesterday, the topic was raised that there's been the adoption rate has been really slow, right? Meaning meaningful output when you talk to enterprises has not been as meaningful, if you will, or at scale as we would expect. I think the number 5% was thrown around. What are you seeing? You sit across, you look at both startups as well as enterprises. What have you seen that either limits adoption or has the potential to accelerate adoption as tech?
So across the tech landscape, across startups, it's at a rapid rate, right? ROI can't be questioned. We see companies deploying simple things like copilots and getting 15, 20% improvement in productivity in their engineering, and they're not taking 15, 20% capacity away, right? Because they have nearly endless supply of ideas for product roadmap that they continue to innovate in. We actually did a state of the enterprise report. It's actually on our website, insightpartners.com, where we did this across like a global 2,000. And we were actually surprised on how many enterprises are at the monetization phase of AI. Yes, there's lots of POCs and things going on, but there are genuine ideas being deployed too, right? And when I say that, it's not just simple ideas. Yes, I think in certain industries it's further along, right? In manufacturing or in healthcare, you have deep science industries where there are things that are possible now that were never possible with AI, right? And those kind of ideas are the biggest ideas to go attempt in most of the industries. So even when we invest, we look at that frame. And similarly, when we talk to large enterprises, and to some extent, we've been massively surprised by big enterprises. We can talk about insurance companies, banks, having really amazing AI talent. They've been able to recruit significant AI talent.
From outside?
From outside, yes. And they understand the value of, yes, they may have gone on the path of training their own models or building their own models, and they quickly understood the general purpose models are fairly good enough, or a mixture of expert models is fairly good enough. It's because they've done those iterations. You almost have to do those initial iterations and fail, and those are the ones that are going fast. And to the earlier discussion on budget, we're seeing people allocate, like data budgets are increasing. In the last 2 years, we know anything associated with the modern data stack, anything associated with ML ops, those budgets have meaningfully increased, like 15%, 25% kind of increase. And the other place where the AI agenda is coming from is if the board is clearly aware of the innovation agenda, it comes from an innovation budget, not just the IT budget, because this is not just IT. You have to fundamentally reimagine your products and services using AI. So it comes from the core product innovation budget or the services innovation budget in most of the other companies.
Cool. So now, I'm going to switch us to starting to talk about the future.
Yeah.
Because that was the topic that we needed to get to. But I wanted to kind of give a little bit of foundation in terms of where we've come from and where we are, right? Where are we headed, right? So, and I'll throw three things I talked about yesterday evening when I sort of welcomed this audience. The three things that seem to be emerging around sort of whether it be larger context windows or agentic AI or text to action, right? Which are sort of this next generation of elements that are starting to show up. Where are we headed with that, or with this next generation of language models, or even multiple references to OpenAI's recent round of funding, right? $6.7 billion, respect to evaluation. Where are they going to deploy those dollars, right? How do we? You may not have, right? You just fired the CTO, or the CTO left. I'm not sure what happened there with Mira, but where
so we haven't invested in any of the frontier models. Yeah. We met a lot of them, and again, this is my personal view, is that at that point it didn't seem like the right investment opportunity for someone like us. It was investable by an NVIDIA, more investable by a Microsoft or a Google, where you're exchanging your compute for capital. And I think there is a pursuit of AGI that is very, very clear at OpenAI as a research house, right? And I think that is going to give us some significant breakthroughs in next generation model capabilities, reasoning capabilities. One of the biggest things that they realized in the 4.0 was, one of the biggest breakthroughs was it's not actually what the model can do today, it'll what it'll be able to do tomorrow, is making the model actually pause and think before it answers. Yep. Right? If you've used all the models in the past, they just kind of like type everything out in one time, right? They're just starting to type a response out without using backspace. I can't do that, right? And nobody can do that. Now they've made the models think and reason. So I think there's new model architectures that are going to come. I just don't know. I can't comment on how they end up making money, but I can tell you that the places where I think is reasonable to understand where the bets are actually very, very solid. To me, this is my personal view, is I think if I just look at all the things that I was part of building through my career over the last 3 decades, all of those things get reimagined and rebuilt. They're almost irrelevant. Like I built a CRM software company. That thing is dumb and stupid. It's right. Like Salesforce. Again, I'm going to pick on them, or like a HubSpot. Like Dharmesh has been up, a HubSpot CEO. He's been up and coding for the last 6-7 months with joy, actually, because of all the things that he's seeing. Right. But the question remains. There's always this debate of, do incumbents win or startups win? It feels like the initial innings, the incumbents are winning because they have distribution advantage, and they can quickly add and incorporate AI, because like I talked about, it is the biggest technology shifts we've seen, yet it is the easiest to incorporate.
But what matters to this group? Like if you kind of cut it back and say, if you're a business leader that's in a conference room or in your boardroom or Zoom call, what does any of that matter to you right now?
Absolutely, because I think what matters is that the entire stack that you build upon, it's getting reimagined. So all the things that you built, now you can build something with intelligence, reasoning, cognition as a first-class citizen, right? That means you can codify your business in an AI and a model versus the past way of doing digital transformation, of where I did something, was a static idea of putting it in software code. Now you're able to generate that code, right? You're able to teach the models how you make a decision in an organization, if I'm a loan processor, how I do that loan processing, right? Or if I'm a business, if I'm a bank, what does my interaction layer look like? And all of those things get rebuilt using a completely new stack. So I think pretty much everything needed to reimagine your business as an intelligence first is already here. You have to kind of like skate towards the puck to go build towards that.
But But if you're, sitting a sitting CEO or a C-suite leader, there's been so much money that's been invested in this, let's call it the classic stack.
Yeah.
Right? And now there's a new stack, right? And 10 years ago we had a classic stack which we then invested in.
Then we went to a cloud native stack.
And now here we are, yet another stack, right? How do you pass through that? How do you think about the investment? How do you think about the balance of that investment? How do you think about, you may be building something today that the next version of GPT just blows it up because it does it natively in a language model or in a specialized model?
Yeah, so first, the good thing is people that have moved to some level of a modern data stack and a cloud native stack are already at an advantage.
Okay.
Right? And then there is this idea of understanding your data ecosystem, if you will. Organizations that have spent a good amount of time on their data ecosystem are at an advantage. Now, the smart enterprises are building, not assuming a single model. There's plenty of frameworks to abstract models away. You don't build for the capability and the cost of the model today. You almost assume the cost will go down, and the optimization will happen, and you build for a mixture of models into the future. And what you build on top of is this new set of frameworks that are emerging, whether it be there are tasks that you can identify as co-pilotable. There are tasks that you can identify that why build a co-pilot when you can go build an autopilot. Then very soon, there are many functions where people are thinking about what does an AI coworker do, right? Why build accounting software when you can build an accountant? So it's those ideas that you're looking at across the various functions. Now, there are companies that are going to be doing this horizontally. There is the buy versus build. And some of the discussions that we have with CIOs or chief transformation officers or CIOs that have become CEOs in this area or chief AI officers is that there is a bias to going and assembling more and building more. In the past, you built all your customizations or uniqueness about your organization deep into the bowels of an SAP or a ServiceNow or a Salesforce. Now the idea is leave those things as they are, because those things are good at structured systems. In most scenarios, to your earlier question of what happens if you have a larger context window, why save data in a reduced, third normalized form when I can have the full unstructured, high fidelity data and I can infer schema on the fly?
So double click on that. Just like, what does it mean to have a, I don't know, million token context window? Just like you can put 100,000 books or manuals all at the same time and just run it off of that single,
So I'll take a practical example. Like everybody has some level of a customer platform CRM system, and you have probably 10 other applications that connect to that CRM to actually make it work, right? Whether it's Gong calls or sales forecast calls or whatever it is, right? All of this data sits in many different disparate systems. Now, when you go do a retrieval in the past, you just did a query of one system. Now, every retrieval can be augmented with generation. So when you retrieve, you can retrieve the full context and take all of that data from all of those systems, put it into an LLM or a model or a set of models, and have it reason things out, and then give you a full response back and say, not just give me a sales pipeline data, but tell me when I personally have to engage in this particular sales call, based on all the past successes and failures of how sales cycles have gone, right? That is a simple reasoning task, good enough for a AI coworker or a synthetic RevOps person as part of a stack.
And then get to the next point of now apply symbolic AI to that context window. What happens?
There's a lot more. You don't need even new model architectures to some extent. There was Andrew Young did a study on, I think just 6 months ago, where he took GPT 3.5, GPT 4.0, and in zero shot how well it could code, and then applied an agentic architecture on top of GPT 3.5, and it could do it better than GPT 4. right? So just by applying agentic architecture on top of a
Existing.
lesser powerful model, you can get it to perform than a higher powerful model. So there's new ways of scaling that people are unlocking, and even what OpenAI released 2 days ago, which is now you can use their frontier models to take the output of the frontier models and teach the mini model, right? So there are all these ideas of how we can use the models better are being born, but the simplest way of building the next class of applications is to think about what work looks like in most enterprises is you want to unlock more human reasoning, you want to automate some reasoning. And in the automation of reasoning, there are systems that you have invested in today that could be surrounded by new things that you can build, new integrations you can build, new intelligent systems you can build. And then to unlock human reasoning, your data has to be ready. You have the new set of tools. So I think there's this. The interesting thing is in the past, we invested in multiple stacks, to your earlier question, right? You had an app dev stack, you had a modern data stack, but I think all of these things are fusing because, yes, the models themselves are sedimenting faster. Every iteration of the model consumes more and more capability, but I still think there is a build layer on top of these models, which looks no different than in the past in some ways with frameworks that help you build agentic systems, frameworks that abstract multiple language models, frameworks that help you keep state, frameworks that help you represent knowledge in a new way, or frameworks that let you do retrieval augmented generation, or build these reasoning engines, right? So you're going to build reasoning engines in your business for various types of
and orchestrators domains as well that need to then pull all of this together in some way too.
And then there's this other view that is emerging, which is the more we start having these AI coworkers, then what does the fabric of work look like?
And also, what's the interaction between a digital and a human agent?
And those
context, right?
We haven't seen great examples of them yet. We're starting to see in the startup world where, some have skipped the whole co-pilot stage and started building what we call simple autopilots that can take a task, get it to completion, and they can plan and they can actually come up with options and present the options to a human in the loop. And then we're starting to see this idea of coworkers where they can complete a task, a more complex task, if you will. But then there are also interesting examples of the other side where there are new ideas that are possible in various areas. Like we have a company called Unlearn, which simulates entire patient population, digital, all in a virtual world, right? So just like NVIDIA has the Omniverse, this is kind of like the equivalent of creating an Omniverse for drug trials, right? So when you get to the physical world, your physical drug trial is much, much shorter because you've simulated the entire drug trial in a virtual world. Or we have a company called Beyond Math with, we've all heard, like when, I'm sure a lot of our math teachers told us that getting good at math makes you good at a lot of other things. Turns out that's true for foundation models as well. And so can you teach foundation models math and first principle physics? And if they understand physics, can you do multiphysics? And if you do multiphysics, can you do simulations that used to take days, now down to minutes? And then can you generate more possibilities? So there are some deep AI apps that are possible, but there is also a lot of the regular task work that we do. Yes, there are misses. Like if you use Copilot, it's interesting right now. It's a miss, but it's also they're throwing a whole bunch of things out there right now, right? It's I don't know if that's the destination UI, chatting all over the place. It's right?
But it's also the classic Microsoft model. Just throw a bunch of stuff out and see and see what works, and then you pick up from there. Hey, so one last question for you, and then we'll wrap this up. Is earlier, for one of the questions about what's the impediment to growth, your answer, you leaned over and you said it's lack of creativity.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, all of the answers are true. Energy, there is, the ability to build on these accelerating models, right? There's talent. All of those things are absolutely true. But sometimes I think the biggest impediment is like lack of imagination and creativity. When we talk to the leaders at OpenAI and Google who are building on these models, and they're thinking so far out. And their simple assumption is don't build based on the model's capability today. Think if it was 100x more powerful very soon, what are you going to go build?
Yeah.
And I think that's really where the game's going to be.
Terrific. Great. Thank you.